Hi, everyone. Today I'm here with Amy Ewing, author of the Lone City trilogy, The Cerulean Duology, and out June 4th, The Irish Goodbye. Hi, Amy. Thanks for joining today.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
So I was lucky enough to get access to The Irish Goodbye early on NetGalley, and I read it, I believe, in like one day. It was like within 24 hours, I finished it. Absolutely fell in love with the characters. I think I laughed and got a little choked up here or there. It was amazing, and I'm so excited for you and for this book to be out in the world.
Oh, that's so
Um,
exciting. Thank you. That's like the best reactions that authors always want,
oh
right?
yeah, but it was fantastic. So we're coming up. It's May, late May now, so it's not too far away.
It's 2
Um,
weeks from today, which is crazy.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah. I mean,
oh,
I feel like it happens fast. Like it seems like I just read it yesterday. Like I always can gauge like how much I really like the book. Because like after you read a book, you have like the initial high, like, wow, that was amazing. And then after time goes on, you're like, I don't really remember. It's like, no, I
other books
remember.
come
Yeah.
in.
It's like, no, I remember. This one stuck with me. It was very
Oh, I'm
special.
so glad. Oh,
um, so I kind of wanted to talk about like some of your inspiration behind the story.
yeah.
There's this emotional landscape of grief, and then there's like this unexpected love, and it's all taking place on Ireland's rugged coast of Inishmore. So could you share what inspired you to write this story?
Well, I was I was actually going through a pretty significant depression during COVID. And because I was originally a YA author, like you had mentioned my other YA series that I had published. And when the pandemic happened, I couldn't sell anything. Um, and I had attached a lot of my identity as to who I was with being a writer. And I was just getting rejected. So I was working really hard on books and getting rejected. And I was feeling very frustrated. And I was feeling like I didn't want to write what I had been writing. And I needed to do something different. And also because of COVID, I like wanted to be anywhere else but where I was. Like I used to travel a lot. Traveling was really important to me. And I have been to Inishmore. So I was like, well, I can't go anywhere, but I could write a story someplace else. And, I usually I'd written fantasy before, and I was just really tired of having to like sort of develop these big worlds. A lot of them had a really darkness to it. And I was like, well, I'm already in a dark place. So we really don't need to be like putting any more dark into this life right now. And I thought, well, what if you tried writing romance? What if you just focused on writing a love story? I had also taken myself out of like obviously like the dating scene, so it was sort of like leaning into all the things I couldn't have: love,
Mhm.
travel, and kind of putting them like this like big wish list. I feel
Mhm.
this book ended up being. It ended up being just like a security blanket almost. Like I just wanted to write something that would comfort me. I needed a lot of comforting, and I wanted to
Yeah.
just write something fun, and something that what I love about romance is that it can be so fun and so light, but it can also have this undercurrent. I mean, we have Cordelia struggling with the loss of her, the death of her father, Niall going through obviously a lot of really an intense overhaul in his own life and his sense of purpose. And so that's really kind of where it came from. I was like, I don't want to do what I'm doing anymore.
Mhm.
I don't want to be where I am anymore. I just wanted an escape, really. Like I wrote this as an escape for myself.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think it's very like brave to like acknowledge that, like especially for yourself, like, and then make that jump and take that step. And I mean, it definitely worked out. Worked out for you. But I love that like writing this for you was more than just like let's just get another book out there. Like it really,
Oh
I mean,
yeah.
I think shines through in the book. Like you can tell. I think that you can always tell when like an author like truly enjoyed and loved and felt what they were writing. So it's really great to hear that. I mean, it
Oh,
was
so yeah,
it
I'm
was
so glad that
fantastic.
that's always the hope, and it's the hope with every book. But I feel like Inishmore was a really special place, and it was really nice to sort of feel like I could go back there for a
Yeah,
moment, you know.
definitely. So you mentioned Cordelia and Niall, and I mean, literally they collide.
Yes.
Their worlds collide, they collide. And I love like the enemies to lovers, like hate to love. Like I love that.
That's my favorite
And
trope.
It was done well. So how did you develop their chemistry, and what aspects of their personalities do you think were most fulfilling for you to explore?
I mean, like I said, I love Enemies to Lovers is my favorite, and I think it's just so fun because I love starting with, like, I feel like hate and love are like opposite sides of the same coin, right? So when you're starting with the sort of fireworks of an argument, it's so much fun then to translate that into the fireworks of sexy feelings and intimate feelings and all that. So I think I mean, Cordelia is the most personal character I've ever written. Like, she is not me, but she is as close because I was like, I just really want to explore all the things that I'm feeling. And I wanted to take a character who is also struggling with her sense of identity, right? I mean, I wasn't experiencing a death at that time. I lost a dear friend very suddenly. So I know how that feels, and I know how that that clinging to your grief feels. Like, if you let it go, you will dishonor the person, So her being stuck in that place, and then also being stuck, like, I was this photographer, I was a successful photographer, I had this career and I don't have it anymore. Who am I? Was almost necessary for me to explore. Like, I remember considering very briefly at the beginning when I was like thinking about this idea of making her a writer, and like everything in my body was like, absolutely not. That's also like a personal pet peeve of mine when like writers make their characters authors. I'm like, okay, but like, point is that we're not supposed to, it just feels like a little bit lazy, like a little bit of a crutch, right? There's sometimes this been done very well. But I love kind of learning about different things when I write, and so learning about photography was really fun. I was like, I knew she would need to be an artist. I knew she needed to be something creative. And then to set up this sort of dynamic of this woman, like, so unwilling to let go of everything, right? She's unwilling to let go of her grief over her father. She's unwilling to let go of this concept of what success looks like, of who she is, and what her career is supposed to look like. And then she collides with this guy who like literally almost had everything and lost it, right? Like, she at least had something. And I feel like Niall, oh God, I just love Niall so much. The things you can't say about real people, you can say about characters. Like, I just love how broken he is. He is so broken.
Yeah.
And I love it. Like, there was something about it that, when you're writing that level, like especially his first chapter, I could feel that, even though I wasn't going through what he was going through, this sense of being broken. It was just like, it was so healing for me to be able to put all of this stuff on the page, and then be able to step away from it because they're them and I'm me. So like, the more that I write it, the more they were really just themselves experiencing this. And I had so much compassion for them. I had compassion for them I didn't have for myself,
Yeah.
So I just feel like then it naturally became like this friction between them. Like, how can I remember my friend who is now actually my editor. She's amazing. She's like my romance guru. I absolutely love her. And she was telling me when I was talking to her about this first draft, she was like, you need to just keep them together as much as possible. You need to be forcing them together. Because I had never written a romance before.
Right.
She's like, we don't need those. Like, you need them to be together. And then by doing that, by me forcing them together, obviously, right, well, how are they going to react to this? How would, like, what can they poke at each other? Like, what vulnerability would they like reveal in each other? And I think that comes in the scene with the family dinner, right, with Niall's dad.
I love that.
I love it. Oh my gosh. Just like, I never thought I would write like a father-son relationship. And I really enjoyed it. And and to have that, they're both sort of, it's interesting then to see the parallels of they're both sort of struggling with their parents and with not being seen as people they are, and so then you start to see all these, like, the ways that they connect, and that leads up to sort of the scene at the Black Fort, which is one of my favorite scenes when you really feel the friendship kind of starting, right? Like, this sort of really
shift.
Yeah. And then it's just so much fun having them be like, eep. Like, I don't know. I like it. This is like, because liking someone is so uncomfortable at first. Like, it's really fun, but it's like really scary. And and it was really fun to live in that moment, to live in those, like,
yeah. And like, going back to like the father-son relationship, like, that felt super authentic, like reading that. It was I feel like from like the male perspective too, like that was done well. Um, and like from like the father and like the son and like the like family business type aspect, it
Oh, I'm
was
so
very
glad.
authentic. I mean, I like grew up in like a small town, like know lots of small businesses, like I have a brother, I have a father. Like it's the dynamic is it's very real, and I feel like it doesn't get highlighted very often. Like this was one of the first ones that I really saw where it was like the father son, and it was like explored, and it wasn't just like a passing thing.
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
So
and I like that they both. I think like Owen has a point, like Owen being
mhm,
the dad. Like in some, I could kind of see where he was coming from. But you're
mhm,
like, dude, you gotta let your kid be your kid.
yeah,
Like you're ruining something. That's
mhm,
actually really beautiful. Like you could be supporting. Especially because obviously Owen was so important in Niall's love of cooking and desire to be a chef, right? So
right,
it's missing the forest for the trees.
yep,
You're like, it's all about you. You know what I mean? Like, and it
yeah.
comes from love of you. And it was nice to write that sort of healing, and to have a sort of gruff, you know.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes like different like conflicts with subplots, like they just don't feel real. They feel kind of forced, and this didn't. So I
So
think you
fun.
did that very well. And really like when we talk about balancing like the themes in like a contemporary romance, especially for somebody who has never like written or
Yeah.
published romance before, um, it's like there's a balance there between like those deep emotional themes and like the lighter humorous aspects. So, like for you, like, did you find like it all came pretty naturally? Did you have to go back and you're like, wow, this is getting too dark. I need to lighten this up a bit, or how was
It
that?
did. It did. It did come, like, as much as I did work a lot on this before we actually had sent it. It got a lot of rejections from people who like were editors who were like wanting to buy it, but they were like, I just don't know what to do with the grief aspect. I don't know how
Mhm.
that would fit into the market. And then it feels like that's something that a lot of readers are commenting that they love about it. Which is like
Yeah,
so frustrating in some sense.
yeah,
And I think that you know I I needed the humor as well,
hmm
and so it was sort of like finding, if I found myself writing an intense scene, I'm like, all right, we need some Rasheen up in here. You know what I mean? Like we
yep,
need something, we need Colin, like we need, like I need like
hmm
my humorous buddies to really lighten the mood, because I did want it to be like this balance of like humor and heart, and I think you do need both.
I
Um,
agree.
and especially when you're kind of exploring like the really deep themes that I was that I was
Hmm
exploring. I think I needed it again. Depressed Amy in 2020 or 2021, I think I wrote this.
I hear
Um,
that a lot though about like the COVID, like the work that people did during COVID.
I
Like,
mean, yeah. I mean, obviously I know I'm not the only person that was like depressed during COVID.
yeah,
And I like was lucky that um I was okay financially, and I had an
hmm
apartment, and I had a dog, and I had my parents. Like my parents live on Cape Cod, so I went to stay with them during the summers, which was
hmm
like a huge godsend, right? To get out of New York.
yeah,
I love my apartment, but I don't want to
I can
like
imagine.
prison in it. Yeah. Um, and so I think that, again, like I think I was just able to feel these feelings through this narrative. And so having that balance was essential to me, like the book didn't go through, I think probably because I had talked to so many people about it, and especially my friend who then became my editor. When she had already knew what was happening in the book, when she bought it. So we didn't actually have to do a lot of big edits like I've done
Hmm
before. It was mostly just like really adjusting certain scenes, certain moments, fleshing
Sure.
out some backstory stuff, which felt really nice, because it felt like the book really did come out of me in the way that it was supposed to, and I
hmm
think um that I was able to do that work sort of on my own when my own
Sure.
press cave, before it ever saw the light of day. Because I wrote it in 2021 and it didn't sell until 2023. And so it was a long journey, and I thought about publishing myself too, because I do self-publish romance under a pen
hmm
name. And I'm glad that I didn't, because I really wanted it to be an Amy book, and I really wanted to start something new. You know what I mean,
hmm
career-wise as well, like Cordelia.
Yeah.
um, like have that sort of door open for me, because I found myself just more, and there, like, obviously there's nothing wrong with YA. I still love YA. It's like my first, my first babies are YA, but it is nice to feel like you can expand, try new things, tell different kinds of stories. And I've just fallen in love with romance. It's just, sometimes I just like want to know it's going to be a happy ending. I want to read a book where I'm like, everything's going to be okay. Like I really needed that, especially during the pandemic. I just needed to know everything was going to be okay, And so to write, like, I'm sorry if I'm like totally rambling here.
No, you're not. You're not.
But like to write, like the third act breakup is like my favorite. I know like a lot of people are readers are like over it, and that's fine. But like I love like the dark abyss before like the dawn.
I like that. I like that too, honestly. I feel like sometimes it's not done super well, and it's like very
totally yes.
but like this was done well. Yeah, like I'm good with the third act breakup as long as it's not like we're just gonna throw this in and this is here we go.
Yeah.
It's like no, that it felt like even that was like it was authentic. Like there was a good reason. Like there was a legitimate reason.
Right? Yeah, you can understand, but then you're also like you ding dongs. Like you know what I mean? Like
and good old Roisin.
Oh my God. Just like God bless her.
Yeah. So talking about like kind of I think like earlier we kind of just discussed like Irish names and different things like that. So like what was like the research process like for, I mean like the setting of Inishmore, it's like its own character. You did a great job and I loved Roisin and her cart. So could you talk about that?
Yeah, I went to Inishmore in 2017. I was technically doing research for the second book in the Cerulean series because there was going to be an island there. I never ended up using it because the island ended up being a totally different kind of island than Inishmore is. And I remember what's funny is I went for 3 days, right? And this is kind of where this is in the book when everyone's saying to Cordelia, like, you're here for the whole summer. Like, I was there for 3 days and everyone on Inishmore was like, why? Like, no one goes there for that long. It's really, really that small. But I wanted to get like the sense of, I did not expect to fall in love with it as much as I did. The Black Fort was a very special place for me. That was like the first place that I went. I walked to it, which was quite a walk from where I was staying. And then like, it's a really intense, like in the book, it's described like, it's obviously it's very accurate that there's like these plains of rock and then you fall down and then there's a plane, you fall down and climbing over like these ancient rock walls and then being someplace, like, I've just never been around ruins that are just like there hanging out, and like it was just so, and there was no one there and it was raining.
Oh, wow.
It was like misting rain. So it was just me. And it just felt like I had stepped back in time. And I had this really strong emotional reaction to it. I actually was originally, when I was thinking about, I just want to write something happy. And I remember thinking, I just want to like go to a cottage in Scotland and like live there for 6 months and like not have to worry about anything. And I was like, I've never been to Scotland, so I can't set a book there. I'd rather not set a book someplace I haven't been. And then I was like, wait, I've been to Inishmore. And that's where it came from. And then I went back and looked at all my videos and looked at all my pictures from the trip. And I started to get really excited because it really is a very special place. And so that was part of it, and I, of course, when I needed to, I would do like some research online, like looking at newspaper articles and stuff that's written about it. To get the characters right, I just watched exclusively Irish movies and TV for like a month straight. And I watched it with the subtitles on. And then I would make notes of like all the little details, like shake your stumps was one that I remember being like, oh, I love that. Roisin's got to say that. Like, what a fun expression. So that's kind of where that came from. And it was nice when I sold the book in Ireland. My Irish editor was like, it's pretty good. I mean, there were things I got wrong that we had to change and fix. But I was like, for an American author, I felt like, okay, at least got a silver medal on.
Yeah, that's great.
I was very flattered. And she was also like, yeah, have you been to Inishmore? Because if you haven't, like, you write it like you've been there. I was like, yes, I have been there. She's like, okay. And that also felt good, that it was authentic. It was coming across as authentic and just how I experienced it and how I remembered it. And I'm actually going there in June with my editor.
I was going to ask if you were going to go back. That's awesome. Like, so definitely have to take a picture at the.
Oh my God, 100%. I'm gonna like bring copies to like leave all about. We're going to do an event in Dublin with my Irish publisher, and then we're going to Inishmore. So I'm super excited. She's never been. I'm super excited to go back. Yeah, I think that'll be really special. Especially there were places that I wrote about that I never got to go to. Like I never got to go to the wormhole or the seal colony, and I would like to go there. So and do a Pony and Trapdoor if we can.
Great. And then it's a different title for
Yes, it's called Worth a Shot, which was the original title that I sold it under.
Okay.
And then they asked me, they were like, well, we might want to change the title. So like come up with titles. And I was like, oh man, I suck at coming up with titles. I hate coming up with titles. Like it's really hard to do. And so I was like, the first one, I was like, this is so dumb, but I'm going to write it down. The Irish Goodbye.
Yeah.
Right. And then of course that's the one that they were like.
But I loved it though. Like honestly, like when I was like scrolling through NetGalley for stuff, like that's what got me.
Yay! Oh my
Like,
God, that's so great.
That's totally what got me. Because like I'm very introverted, and like I always say like I love an Irish goodbye.
Oh my God, yeah.
Because I just leave.
100%. I hate when like goodbyes drag on. And it made sense for this book because it immediately shows, especially an American reader, that takes place in Ireland, or at least probably does. And Niall explains what an Irish goodbye is I wrote it into the book. You know, and so it felt like, oh yeah, this is appropriate. I mean, it was just the only expression I could think of that included Irish, you know, which is why I picked it first.
No, I think it was definitely a good title.
Yeah, I feel like it fits. And obviously in Ireland, they're like, we're not going to need that.
Yeah.
Like, we're gonna keep it as this.
The goodbye.
Yes. Yeah. We just call it a regular goodbye here, guys.
No, that's good. But kind of like talking back up about like the like rediscovery, like the grief, like that whole journey with like Cordelia. You've said like you were definitely going through it. Like while you were writing this book was like therapeutic for you to write. But like her character arc, how did that feel like writing that? And then what do you hope that the readers take away from her story?
I mean, it was so nice. I mean, it was really nice to write her a happy ending too, which I think gave myself hope. But it was also, I mean, I would want people to take away that we are so much more than one thing, and we're so much more than what we do, right? Or what we think we're supposed to be. I mean, it took me even still, like after I had sort of tried to process that out, it took me until, I don't know, maybe even just a year ago to actually truly get to a point where like I loved myself no matter what, right? Like, and that was a long journey that started well before this book. But to feel like I'm enough just as I am, you know, that I'm worthy of love just as I am. I don't have to be flashy and sparkly. I don't have to be the shiniest thing in the room. And I really think, and I think that was what, even though she, of course, ends up being, not to spoil anything, but she ends up being successful. She ends up finding that hook again, right? And with her photography, but she finds it for herself first. You know what I mean? She does it for herself first. And I think that's really important. And I feel like that was something that I also did with like when I started doing indie publishing as well. I was like, I would like to tell stories, and I would like to stop having it feel like if someone in some position says no to me, that is who I am. That is what I'm worth. I'm worth nothing. Right. And I think that being an artist is really hard. Being creative is really hard. We're generally very sensitive people. Yeah. And very deep in our emotions. And so it was, and then to have that be paired with the loss of like her, I mean, her father was her cheerleader, you know, so much more so than anyone else in her family. So to have lost that connection, you know, was really disorienting for her. But then to have her find it, like, I just love, like, Niall does not give a shit about the photography world. He's like, about it. Yeah. But he's just like, she's amazing. Like the way that she sees the world. And that was really fun for me to then also, for me, I have my college roommate, who's still a good friend of mine, is like a really successful wedding photographer. So I like FaceTime with her. I was like, Marlies, can you like talk to me about like photography? like how also like how it affects your daily life, you know, like how it affects how you see things. And so a lot of the stuff that Cordelia does in the book is direct from Marlies.
That's
where
cool.
she like adjusts herself, or she can like sit in the same place for a really long time. You know, just like all these little tiny things. She's like, I always need things to be framed. So it drives my daughter crazy. Because I'll be like, no, I need you to move a little bit to the left. You know, she's like, Mom, step up. And so I really wanted to add that in with just how Cordelia visualizes things, because it's so different than how I am. You know, and then that makes it more fun, because that allows, there's a lovely closeness, but then there's a lovely distance, you know? and the distance, the closeness is for me, and the distance is for the reader. You know, that I hope that whatever they're feeling, or that they can connect with Cordelia in their own way. You know.
Yeah. I mean, what you said about like we don't have to be like sparkly like all the time, and like earlier you mentioned like it took like about 2 years to sell this book,
Yeah.
and then you also said you know, that like writing indie, it's like you do that because like really you're passionate about writing and you want to share that, and you don't want to have to like prove yourself every time. It's like you just want to get it out there.
Yeah, so I
And
just
I
want to write
think
a story.
yeah, and I think like that's what's important. It's like don't let society or other people like make you feel like you're not good enough. And I definitely got that like from the book. Like I think that's an important lesson, especially in today's world where like everybody is super into like how many likes did I get, or like how many
Yes.
views did I get. And it's like I
What
mean
else?
even like with my
Yeah.
like with my blog, like it's not like a very big blog, but I absolutely love it, and that's why I do it, and I will keep doing it. And like that's like you'll lose your happiness if you focus on like you'll lose like the core values and the reasons why you started doing this and why you loved it. So I
Yes.
love that you've shared that. But reflecting more on like the writing journey, what do you think was like the most enjoyable part of writing this book? And maybe talk a little bit about how it was different than like the YA that you've written. And then like I absolutely loved Roisin.
I know. I
So
was
like if
gonna
there's
say,
any like love, love,
right?
love. But like are there any like super special characters or scenes that really like were important to you and special to you?
So Rasheen is probably the best character I've ever written. Like
I
hands
mean, it was
on.
fantastic.
Like I honestly, I feel like I didn't write her. I feel like she is like real,
She
and she
just
was
yeah.
like, "Hi, no, you're doing it wrong. Let me do it. Get out of the way." And talk about like being yourself, right? Like Rasheen to me
Mhm.
embodies like I do not give a fuck. Right?
Yeah.
In this attitude, she's like, "This is who I am. This is what I think. This is how I'm gonna like tell you what I think." You know, in this really wonderful, wonderful way that was just like I needed her. I needed
Mhm.
her for the laughs. You know, I needed her for her brutal honesty. I needed her for her fun and for her love of nature, of
Mhm.
mystery, of fairy stories, all that kind of stuff. Um, well, I mean, writing, pivoting, it was fun. It was fun to like write sex scenes and also like
Yeah.
swear. like
Swear
someone
was cool. Yeah.
someone like dropped a star off of like a review from like 5 to 4 stars
Uh-huh.
because of like, foul language. I was like, I don't know what to tell you. It's Ireland. Also, it's me. I swear. I
Yeah.
swear a lot. I felt like liberated in that sense of like I can sort of
Mhm.
have them talk how however I want them to talk.
Mhm.
But it was, it was kind of like I really loved. I had started YA loving it because it was like a lot of firsts. Like
Mhm.
YA, you're like falling in love for the first time, and you're straddling that period between like being a child and being an adult. And so you're trying to figure out how to have your own agency, and everything is kind of like high intensity because it's new. I really loved pivoting now to writing characters who have history and have baggage and have to sort of grapple with that, because that's where I'm at. And it's really fun to kind of piece together like, well, what kind of person would match with another kind of person, right?
Mhm.
Or what if I had this kind of person and then they met this kind of person, and what would the conflict be there? I kind of love having a lot of writing fantasy. A lot of the conflict is external, right? And it's kind of fun to focus more on what do we do in ourselves that prevents us from living our fullest lives.
Right.
How are we getting in our own way? And so it's a little bit of quieter conflict, that then has room for those moments of sweetness, or those moments of fun. Like I love that. I do love the chapter where Cordelia and Roisin hang out for the first time, and she's like drawing, right?
Yeah.
She's getting in touch with like a different kind of art.
Mhm.
And and like just love like Roisin's like stream of consciousness. She just talks
Yes.
to everything, and it
Yes.
was so fun. Like it was just so fun to picture her garden and to like see her kitchen, and
Mhm.
allowing this woman into Cordelia's life in a way that really, I think was helpful for both of them. I think Cordelia affected
Mhm.
her as well. And so, that was kind of, yeah, it's just like entering a different point of life with a different perspective. Like someday maybe I'll go back to writing YA as well. It's certainly
Mhm.
not something that I've closed the book on, but I really do enjoy writing romance right now, and I really do enjoy exploring people with different misconceptions or wounds, about love, about themselves, about what they deserve in the world.
Yeah. So you're the daughter of a librarian, is that right? So you've been surrounded by books like forever. Would you say like there's any authors that like significantly shaped your early literary experiences? Like if you could talk a little bit about like what you read like growing up and like what you like to read now.
So Roald Dahl is like the
Okay.
most influential author in my life. He was the first author I ever reread. Like I'm a huge rereader of books that I love, and the BFG is my favorite book. The BFG was the first book I ever reread. So my mom is actually a law librarian. But we were like very restricted in terms, like we were allowed to watch like an hour of television and half an hour educational. So everything else was books, and we had this like, and she would also, if we didn't know a word, she'd be like, look it up in the dictionary. We had this big leather bound giant dictionary that we flip through. Oh God, Mom, just tell me, and she's like, no, you have to find it yourself. And my grandmother, my dad's mother, actually also worked at a library mending books. She wasn't a librarian. She mended books. Like she volunteered. And so she would bring home these old Roald Dahl books that like she would mend, but they were like, the library was like, we're getting new ones, right? These ones are old. So I still have them. They're like my most precious possessions. I have like all these mended Roald Dahl books from the 80s. And and so that was sort of, and my grandmother loved to read us aloud to us. My mom did too. So it was just sort of everywhere, in my childhood. And I just like Roald Dahl instigated my love of fantasy because then I'm like a huge Tolkien nerd. Like I have 2 Tolkien.
Oh yes.
And I remember reading the first time I read, again, I've read it multiple times. So the first time I read the Lord of the Rings trilogy, getting like halfway through Return of the King and being like, you need to slow down. You're going to be really upset when this book is over.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, I did not want to leave that world, right? Like, which is the best feeling, but it's so sad. Like, oh my God. I think if I could have one superpower, it would be to like delete a book from my head and be able to read it like as if for the first time.
It's like heartbreaking. It's like so bittersweet. It's like I absolutely loved this, but like you're almost mourning because it's like I will never be like surprised again by these things.
Yeah, right. I'll never have this experience again. Although I do love, especially with something as sort of dense as Tolkien, rereads are amazing because you just pick up on a lot of things, which is really fun. Yeah, and I read that when I was 17 or 18 when I read that. And now it's funny. So this is all another reason why Cordelia is like me. I'm super into true crime. So I literally go back and forth between true crime and romance. I'm either reading one or the other, and I alternate. Because sometimes I'm like, I'll get into a point, like my boyfriend knows this. He's like, are you having bad dreams again? I'm like, yeah. He's like, how many murder shows have you been watching? And I'm like, maybe a lot of 2020 episodes all in a row, but don't judge me. So I've been reading, I have Kindle Unlimited, and Anne Rule is like a fantastic true crime author. And so I'm reading through her catalog. And I also am reading right now Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez.
Okay.
Who I love. I love her. So yeah, I know. It's so weird. It's just so weird. I go back from like either extremely happy stuff or really dark.
I'm all over the place with like genres as well, like especially with like NetGalley, and I also have Kindle Unlimited. So it's like, I mean, I'm also the person that it's like, I'll get a Kindle and won't buy as many books, and it's like I read it on Kindle and then I buy the book as like a trophy.
Oh my God, I love that though. As an author, I'm like, yes, you're our favorite.
So my husband is just like rolling his eyes.
Oh my gosh.
And then I have like the remote clicker and like the Kindle stand, so I can just like sit there like with the blanket and all that. I mean, I still love reading, like opening a book, but like the Kindle, it's like I can just take it everywhere. I don't have to worry about my son like messing up the pages or something if I bring it. But
like I love bringing like a book with me someplace, but it is really nice just to be able to have it just like, it's like fits in all my purses, you know what I mean? Like it's easy, it's just much more portable. I did read Demon Copperhead recently by Barbara Kinsey. I absolutely loved it. And I was like, this is not like, I have not read like a literary adult fiction book in a really long time. And I was like, it's nice sometimes when I have to remind myself, like shake out of your sort of back and forth romance true crime. You know what I mean? Because there are so many other stories out there. But it's just hard when you find your, like, I know what I like.
Yeah, like I think I'm biggest with like thriller, contemporary romance, and like romantasy, fantasy,
Yeah.
those. But like I will say, like how you kind of said, like contemporary romance, like you needed it. For me, like I didn't read romance for like a super long time. Like in my early 20s, there was a lot of the thriller and then like fantasy and stuff. But then like I went like we had like a kind of like a sad time we were dealing with, and I had a friend send me Emily Henry Beach read like as like a gift.
Oh my
And I was
God.
like, and I was just like, I don't really read romance, but I'll try it. And that book was like, I was like, okay,
I'm sold.
I am going to read all of them, like all of the romance books now.
Yeah.
So like, it definitely like you need, it's like for you writing it, for readers reading it, like whether you read different genres and you need to pick me up or you're just going through something and you need to pick me up, it's like I love variety. Like I love reading, I love
Yeah.
variety. It's like there's something for every stage of your life or whatever you're going through.
Yes.
If you need to
Yeah.
escape, if you need to like escape and not be in this world, like check out The Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
you know.
Yes. If you like
But
need a
then
practical escape, or if you want to escape in this world, right? And that's
yes,
why I was like, then go to Insecure,
absolutely.
you know?
Yeah, and I've not done like really any traveling other than just in the US. I just haven't. So like reading books like
So
set
that's
like I read one that was set in Scotland earlier this year. This was Ireland. Like I love it. I love it
you
so
feel like you get
much.
to
And then it
travel.
like makes me it's like I really want to go now. And it's like, you know, having little kids and traveling not
I know.
always the
I was
best
like, do it.
timing,
Yeah,
but
that's hard.
but
But
no,
that's
like it's but it's great because like I can just be in my little house in my like in the little valley where I live and still feel like I'm going somewhere. So I love that. So you mentioned like you probably will like at some point like write more YA. So like future projects, like are you working on anything now? Do you think you'll stick with contemporary romance for a while?
definitely on a contemporary romance. I mean, I'm right now, I'm like, this is how like I feel like being an indie author is like constantly being like, oh shit, that's due now. Like I have a book that's coming out in July, and I'm like a little over halfway through it. But that's how it kind of
Mhm.
works. It's like a totally different beast,
Yeah.
right? I give half of it to my editor, she gives it back to me, I give her the other half, and then I just blah 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 send it to a proofreader and it's
Mhm.
done. So that's exciting, and I'm excited about that. But I really want to do another book with Alcove. I've really loved working with them. Obviously, working with my editor has been an exceptionally awesome experience.
Mhm.
I don't know. I do have an idea that would again be sort of a travel, but it would be sort of like, I feel like it's sort of like Emily in Paris meets Chef, like that movie Chef with Jon Favreau,
Okay. Yeah.
but with the older heroine. I don't know if it's too much to do another chef, but I just really wanted to write it's such a man's world. I wanted to write a woman who has to leave New York, and I love Paris. Paris is like my favorite city in the world. Like, sorry, New
Mhm.
York, I love you, New York, but and so I have like certain elements that I'd want to explore. Getting out of a toxic relationship, which is something that I've had experience with. A woman who's kind of on the cusp of turning 40, which was like kind of
Mhm.
a real mindfuck for me, even though I absolutely love being in my 40s. Like I was
A
like,
lot
why
of
would
people say that.
yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. I think this is like coming to the point of being like, oh, like I know myself. You know, there's
Mhm.
just this connectivity with myself that I would love to explore. And who knows, maybe it would be a little more women's fiction than romance. I'm not sure. Like, I feel like this is something, or like maybe I'll get another idea. Like I could absolutely, I feel like I have all these little snippets of ideas, and it's
Yeah.
finding what things might, marry well together. I mean, I just love writing about food too, which is why I think I'm always
Oh, yeah.
writing about chefs. Like, I hope you enjoyed the food in this.
Definitely.
Like, even in my first series, my first book, The Jewel, I remember my editor getting me notes back, and she was like, "Do we need to know every meal Violet has?" And I was like, "Yes, we do." I was like, "Cut one." I was like, "I'll cut this one lunch, Karen," and everything
I
else.
feel like I feel like your Instagram, you post a lot of like really good food.
I will in my stories, because then I'm like, I'm literally, okay, this is a little embarrassing, but like every time I cook something, I take a picture and I send it to two of my best friends and my boyfriend. I'm just like,
I mean,
haha,
I
or
do.
like make sure that it looks really nice. But I was like, I can't be
Yeah.
this person that does this online so much.
Oh,
It's really annoying. But I
I do it a lot
do
on
like, I was like,
Snapchat.
if
I'm
you
like,
like it,
send
nice
this to
to know.
20 people. And like they're all just like you again.
Like I love cooking, you know? And like, it's funny because when I first started dating my boyfriend, I remember being like, sending him one and then being like, I don't know, is that too weird? Is this like too much? Like I send it to my friends and like, it's only been like a month. And later we were like on a date or something. And I was like, is it okay that I send you my food pictures? And he was like, oh my God, I love it. It's great. Please
Yeah.
like,
I love it. I love when people send me food pictures because, like, if they're out, I'm like, okay, like, where is this? I need some details. And it's like, ooh, a new spot to check out, or it's like, ooh, send me the recipe. That looks really good.
100%.
Love that.
I just like love looking at delicious food. I mean, I love eating delicious food. It's like it's just like a win-win.
I completely agree and understand. So I see, like, talking about like different like careers and writing about different careers. I see that you like do some like editing.
Yes.
So how does that? So I've talked to somebody before who does like freelance editing and also published. And she and I were kind of like had like a similar mindset of like I also do some writing. I've not published anything. But for me, like I'm very much a perfectionist. So when I'm writing, it's like really hard to not edit while I'm writing, or it's like hard to get the words on the page. Like for you, like does the editing part like affect you during your writing, or are you good at separating and going back?
Yeah, not really. I love being a freelance editor because, well, I love helping people make their story stronger. Like I am deeply passionate about every single client that I work with. Every single author I take on, I am like very excited about their work, and I'm excited to help them make the story even stronger. And there's no better feeling than having an author be like, oh my God, like you fixed all these things that I was like, couldn't tell. And you know what I mean? It's like, I wish I could do that in my own work. I cannot. I cannot be my own editor. It's also like, I don't have to fix it. I love being editor, being like, here are notes, you fix it. As opposed to being like, here are my notes. Now I gotta go.
Yeah, now I have to fix it.
But I think the most important lesson I've learned after being like in this industry for like over a decade is I'm much better at failing at my first drafts. Like I give myself a lot of freedom to fail. One thing I also have noticed, and this especially in my indie stuff because I'm writing them much faster, is that now I just tell my editor, I'm like, please tell me what they're supposed to be feeling. I don't know I never put feelings in my first drafts. Like I'm mostly like trying, I have like a chessboard and I'm like, everyone, I just need to know where you all are moving. I need to know like where my pieces are going and like blocking out the plot. And then I'm like, sometimes I'll be like, oh, right, they should have feelings. And I like shove a feeling in. And it's usually the wrong feeling. Like once out to me, like, no, I think that maybe the conflict is this. I'll be like, oh, yes. How did you see that? And you know, it's a little frustrating because I'm like, but you do this, you do that side too, you know, but it's when it's their own work, it's much harder to see. And also I think just like, I just have to let it go. Sometimes I get very frustrated with myself. I'm like, I could should myself a lot. You should be doing this better. Like you shouldn't be making these mistakes. You should. And it's like, I don't know, Amy, this is how you are. Like you could fight it or you could just like get the work out and wait to hear what Kayla has to say about, you know what I mean? About where to put the feelings. So she always knows. And then once you get that feedback, it's like dominoes falling into a line, you know, it's like, oh yeah, this is what this book's supposed to be. So I think it's just like, I enjoy both of them. You know, I enjoy both processes. I enjoy helping people make their book stronger. I don't enjoy receiving notes. I do, but I don't. You know, I'm always like, I don't want to read it. What do you mean this wasn't perfect the first time out? You know, like, of course it wasn't. And it's, you know, it's like, I love when getting notes turns from like dread to excitement. You know, I love when I always call it getting the sting out. I'll just like read the notes really quickly and just get like a real sense of what she's saying. And then like step back and just let my brain sort of like marinate on the notes. Yeah. Then I'm like, oh my God, yeah. Oh, and then this scene can be about this instead. Or like, oh, then I'll cut that and I'll put that there. And so that's when the magic happens, I feel.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's for me, it's like the getting the words on the page part, like that's hard. It's like I know it's like in my head, but it's like I can't. It's like I'm glad that you can just let it go. I'm still working on that, like just getting something down, because like then I'll get like a sentence out and I'll be like, this sucks, and like I'll go back, delete.
I mean, I feel like I'm not as precious with the actual sentences. Sometimes I do have to remind myself, I'm like, we don't need to stop and like research like what sort of would be authentic like for this.
Dive
to do that. Yeah. And I'm like, we need to like hit our word count. Like my day always starts 8 to 10. I write 2,000 words. So like, and then that way it's done. And I'm like, I'm not writing anymore today. Yay. Cause I love writing. Sometimes you're like, it feels like putting on your gym clothes. I'm like, I don't want to work out. Like opening the document is like basically like putting your sneakers on, and then I'm like, okay, well my sneakers are on, so I might as well go for a run. You know what I mean? I open the document, and I'm like, okay, it's open. You might as well just like read what you wrote yesterday, and then at that point you're back.
The rereading, that's like, and that always gets me, like, especially if it's like it's been like a week or something, and it's like going back and
oh my gosh,
hey, where was I? And then you like really just like start at the beginning, and it's like now it's been 2 hours, and you've just been reading it.
And then you're like, you get nothing. I mean, and sometimes those days are necessary. And then I also like, my problem is when I don't know where the story's going, and then I end up writing a whole bunch of stuff that I know is going to get deleted, which is very frustrating. Or it's not enjoyable. That's when writing is really not enjoyable, when you don't know, you don't even know where the plot's going. So like, it's not even a matter of like my character's not feeling the right feelings. I'm like, I don't even know the scene that they need to be having right now. But I actually just got through a period of that. And I'm like back on track. So I wrote like 2,000 words in like an hour and 15 minutes today, because I was like so in the zone.
That's great.
You know what I mean? You're just like, yeah. I was like, I know what the scene is. You know, oh my God, thank God I know what the scene is. And I know what the next scene is and the next one. So that feels like, okay. Like this is the first time I don't outline ever, but I have sort of outlined this current book. And I'm really glad. I'm like, let's see if we can keep doing that going forward.
Yeah.
Just because it allows those moments when I'm stuck to get smaller, to be a smaller part of the process. Because I'm okay. I've gotten okay with like leaving things on the cutting room floor. It's just like, when you know what you're writing is not going to make it into the book, you kind of have to like, I have friends who are like, oh, I just skipped that. I'm like, what? No, I cannot. I have to write linearly. I cannot write out of order. I cannot just skip a scene.
I don't think I could do that either. I feel like I would get confused.
I just can't. And I lose the thread, because like everything informs everything else. Yeah. The only thing I can skip is sex scenes, because sex scenes, I'm like, okay, if I need to like go back and write that later, like that's fun. Like, those are fun. I'm just like, then I'll just lie back and be like, okay, what are you two kids going to get up to? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Just wait till you watch like the new season of Bridgerton or something like that.
It's like, I haven't started it yet.
I wish I would have waited, because the second half doesn't come out until for like a few more weeks. So like they split it. Definitely really good. It's like about Colin and Penelope this time. So yeah. But if you like can wait, I would wait, because it was super annoying to like for it to be like, all right.
Who you think?
I think it was 4 episodes.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. And so it was like, and then like, you know, when you're done a series, it like gets you the screen on Netflix where it's like recommended, and I'm just like, what is happening?
Like no.
Yeah, it's like when you read like you're like in the middle of a series and you read the next book in like a week after it comes out, and it's like, now I have to wait a year at least.
Sure, I know. That is also the thing I do like about indie publishing, is that like if I'm writing a series, although it's not quite the same as like a fantasy series, it's all connected, but it's like the wait time is generally, I'm planning on releasing the second book in this series. I'm giving myself 6 months so I don't like lose my damn mind, because it took way too long getting this one started. I was like, I don't want to do this again. And I know the holidays are coming, so you know, I was like, okay, so maybe January, but even still, like 6 months is like easy when you're used to waiting a year. You know, I feel like that's like
that's not bad at all. Like it's the ones like I really enjoy Sarah J. Maas. And then like, I mean, they're worth the wait, but it's like, oh my God.
Yeah, like, I know, right? Because they're behemoths. That's probably
and I read them way too fast, and especially like I buy the book, but I read it on the Kindle because it's so thick. It's like I hate when you're like in the beginning of a really thick book and it's like 2 pages. It's like 800 pages. But then like you like look at the book and you're like, I read this in 3 days. Like this is such a big book. I didn't do any chores during that time. Like everything's a mess. But no, I mean, I'm so excited to see like what you have in the future, and I'll definitely be messaging you about some of your like indie stuff. And
yes, please. I feel like, I mean, they're different. They're like lighter. They're not as as intense, but that takes a lot more, and that's fine. I kind of like being able to do like the one I'm writing now is like a murder mystery element in it, because I'm just like,
I love that.
I was like, I just kind of wanted to like put all the shit that I like into it, and then with books that are under my name, I want to like take. I can allow myself to take more time. You know what I mean? And I like doing, like I said, I really like doing both. And there's a book that I wrote that was YA that didn't sell, and I changed it to adult, and it worked way better as adult. but it's a really weird book and it's never going to sell traditionally. So I was like, I'm going to do this myself as me. I'm just going to now, like, understanding how publishing works. I'm like, well, I can just publish it myself. It's like a ghost story. It's about like girls with special abilities and loss and generational trauma and ghosts. And I really, really love it. And like a big house in Maine. Obviously big houses. So it's always going to be fancy. I feel some element of something that's pleasing aesthetically, you know, because I like, that's what I like to live in. So, you know, so it's just, it opens up more avenues for me to, again, like the point is sort of is for me to like tell stories, you know?
Yeah. I love that. And like, I feel like writing different genres helps you write other genres better too.
I think I didn't want to get boxed in with just YA fantasy, you know, and then I felt like I was. And then it's like when you try and do something else and you feel like it doesn't work, then that's what that compounds the sense of this sense of failure, this sense of, I I literally was like, I guess I'm bad at writing now, you know, because I literally was like allowing all of this external shit to dictate what my value was, you know?
No, I love that you don't like keep yourself in like the box of YA or even the box of contemporary romance, that you like explore like what you want to write. I think that's like the truth. Like your work will be better because of that, because you're allowing yourself to explore other genres and other themes. And so I think that's really important. This has been absolutely wonderful today. I really appreciate you taking the time
Thank you
to
so
join
much
me.
for having me. I had such a pleasure. It was such a pleasure being here. This was so much fun.
Yeah, I agree. So for everyone, The Irish Goodbye comes out June 4th, and there's still time that you can pre-order it, but absolutely check it out. It is an amazing book.